You remain standing. We'd like to invite everyone again to rise for the posting of the colors by the Toledo Police and Fire Honor Guard.
Officers, present arms!
Good evening. May God's peace and blessings be upon you all. My name is Shamsuddin Wahid, and I'm an imam at the Toledo Mosque on Bancroft Street downtown. and I come also as a representative of the United Muslim Association of Toledo, and indeed of all of the Muslims in the Toledo, Ohio area. I would like to begin by saying, in the name of God, the compassionate, the ever merciful, we have come here with a heavy heart. And indeed, all of us know why we are here. Yet, look around. Look at the numbers of people who are present in this facility. This gathering, as well as the funeral mass to be held tomorrow, is a testament to Michael Collins, not only as the mayor of Toledo, Ohio, but as a man, as a human being. To his widow, his family and friends, we extend our sincere condolences and best wishes. And before the invocation, offer some words. The Islamic scripture called the Quran, it says that whatever is in the possession of God is enduring. The Quran also says that all things return to God. So this means that while Mayor Collins may no longer be in our midst physically, he is, however, in the presence of God. And thus, his existence is there, in a sense, eternal. And of course, he exists in the memory of all of us here in Toledo, Ohio. The particular invocation that I have opted to share for tonight's gathering is also from the Quran. And it seems an appropriate supplication for our city leadership and citizens alike, whether they are political leaders or social leaders or religious leaders. Because it is a prayer or an invocation that we make as we move forward. I will make this supplication in Arabic and then give the translation, and then I will conclude. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. In the name of God, the beneficent, the ever compassionate, our Lord, do complete for us enlightenment. Bestow upon us protection and forgiveness. Indeed, you are omnipotent. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Imam. Everyone can be seated. My name is Diane Larson, along with Jerry Anderson, very proud to join together tonight to pay tribute to Mayor D. Michael Collins. I also want to recognize some of the folks who have been here today. We know the governor visited with you, Sandy. Attorney General Mike DeWine is here, various city and county leaders, as well as the families of Stephen Mashinsky and Jamie Dickman. Jamie Dickman's mother told me a story about how she will be forever indebted to Mayor Collins for allowing her to see her son when he passed away and make sure that she had the chance to say goodbye. Of course, thank you to his family for allowing all of Toledo to be a part of this. And thank you to the city leaders as well who have worked so hard to make this possible. We are also told, I haven't seen them, that Evelyn Johnson and Andre Crisp were planning to be here. Those two are, of course, the Good Samaritans who administered CPR to the mayor right after his accident and certainly gave him a fighting chance. There they are right there. Thank you.
You betcha.
Sandy, thanks to you and the family for the kind invitation to me to be here tonight to celebrate the life of my friend and our mayor. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, ours is a community that D. Michael lived for, he breathed for, he loved, and I mean a lot. This tremendous turnout tonight shows that I think this community knows the feeling is mutual, Mr. Mayor. I would like each of you to turn to somebody next to you, beside you, behind you, shake a hand, say hello, thank them for being here, tell them you know what they're going through. In so doing, ladies and gentlemen, we are proving again what the mayor knew and always said, that ours is a compassionate community. To Sandy and the girls, grandkids, extended family, we are so sorry for your loss. Please accept a community's love and sympathy and our heartfelt thanks as well. When you look at D. Michael's career, his schedule, I know about the late night phone calls. I got them. I was at early morning breakfasts here, Veterans Day. You all truly shared D. Michael with this community. We thank you for doing that. So what are we going to do with all this, gang? What are we going to do with all of this? I've emceed many things. Diane has emceed many things. Often D. Michael out there in the crowd. The program says, celebrating the life of D. Michael Collins. And so that's what we're gonna do. And there is so much to celebrate. So if as people speak tonight, anybody here, here's a funny story, here's something that makes you laugh, please laugh. Remember this mayor's Irish wit and sense of humor. It's okay to laugh even at a memorial service, because laughter says we loved the person, the personality. There may be times tonight when a lip quivers and eyes can't hold those tears anymore. Let it go. Let it go. It's all right. Everyone around you, everybody in this arena understands, and they're probably already going to be there, okay? Let it go. But Jerry, you said celebration. Well, the pain and sorrow we feel over the loss of a loved one, after all, is a reflection of what that person, that relationship meant to us. The fact that it no longer exists in that dimension is what causes the sadness. So yes, even shedding tears, even crying tonight, is a tribute and a celebration to a great life and the respect that we held for that person. Our first speaker tonight was here. We were comparing notes. 3 weeks ago, this past Monday, in this same arena, in this same room, myself, Nagy was here, D. Michael was here. It was the occasion of the Martin Luther King Jr. Unity Day celebration. Dr. Naganathan spoke. Mayor Collins spoke. Marcy spoke. And if you recall, back then, the theme of that day was, what are you doing for others? Remember, Nagy? What are you doing for others? And the challenge was not only to ask yourself, what are you doing today for others, but every day of the year, what are you doing for others? Did we have any idea 3 weeks ago would be in this arena for this purpose tonight? And yet I think D. Michael would allow that question to stand and all of us to ask, what have you done for others today? Because you could ask D. Michael Collins that on any given day. He would never give you a haughty answer. That wasn't him, not a chest-pounding way. But he would always be able to tell you what he was doing that day, because in a life of public service, he was always doing for others. I think he would allow that question to stand tonight, and I know he would welcome back By the way, he gave you a ringing endorsement, didn't he, on that day, 3 Mondays ago. Ladies and gentlemen, the interim president, University of Toledo, this is Dr. Nagi Naganathan.
Thank you, Jerry. And thank you all for being here to honor our mayor, our friend, and a true servant leader of Toledo. Eulogies are always associated with difficult times. These are somber occasions, except when Jerry is there. These are times of deep grief and deep grieving. These are times for deep reflections. And as counterintuitive as it may sound, these are times for celebrations as well. When these occasions are eulogizing a good friend or a member of your immediate family, one does not quite know what the right words are. But I do know that I'm honored to be with all of you this evening to celebrate the life of D. Michael Collins. Our university and I are truly honored to host this special service. To my dear friend Sandy Drabick, and to the mayor's entire family, please allow me to convey the sympathies of the UT community. Our sincere thanks to you for sharing your husband, your father, and your grandfather with all of us. I cannot think of a better way or a more fitting way to honor Mayor Collins, both in format and in venue. First of all, what can speak more highly of a person's life than so many people seeking the chance to say goodbye? And I cannot think of a better venue. Just a few hundred feet away is the building where for more than a decade the mayor taught criminal justice. He was passionate about education. He truly believed that education is the solution to poverty. He was committed to sharing with UT students the lessons he had learned as a public servant through his time as a police officer, a leader in the police union, and as an elected official. He earned 2 degrees from UT, was a proud Rocket, and here we are in the Savage Arena. I have had many occasions to witness firsthand Mayor Collins' interaction with the residents of Toledo and the respect he has earned from this community over the course of his career. He was honest, he was straightforward, he did not have a facade. What you saw was what you got, and what you heard was what he meant. He truly loved the city of Toledo and its people, and his only goal was to make the lives of people in this community better. He didn't want the credit, was happy to take the blame, and focused only on achieving the results that benefited the citizens of Toledo. And that is a profile of a leader, someone who truly places the obligations and responsibilities to his community first at all times. And whether the issue is the algal bloom, the future of Wrangler, or just filling potholes, he was equally passionate. He was dedicated to finding those solutions. And he was elected, and he did so until the very end. On the morning of Sunday, February 1st, Michael Collins enjoyed doing everything he loved and being with the people he loved and cared about. Just hear this list of events that transpired just that very morning. The devout Catholic attended Mass with his loving wife, Sandy Drabick. He hosted a press conference on snow emergency with the city and county leaders and his staff by his side. He enjoyed being just plain Michael Collins, the citizen, shopping at Costco like many other residents of the city of Toledo. And he chose to drive on the snowy streets of Toledo so that he could personally assess the quality of the roads for the safety of his people. Serving others was his passion. A few years ago, I came across a poem by one of the great Indian poets and philosophers. His name was Sri Aurobindo. And I believe this poem describes our friend Michael Collins very well. And here it goes. All is too little that the world can give, its power and knowledge, or the gifts of time, and cannot fill the Spirit's sacred thirst. There is a need within the soul of a man, the splendors of the surface never sate. Michael Collins was certainly one such man. No amount of time in this world could have satisfied his thirst for service to his fellow citizens. Until his last conscious moment, that is exactly what he chose to do. Our city, our university, and I will miss him very deeply. Mayor Collins, we thank you and honor you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you for opening Savage Arena for all of us tonight. We know that this was a place where you and Mike enjoyed spending a lot of time. In fact, you look at the light up there, and that was your season ticket seats here for many women's and men's basketball games as well as football games. We're going to hear tonight, we heard from so many people who are telling stories, but we can't know what he was like as a father or a husband or a grandfather. Only you can know. And we can't know what he was like as a partner and a friend, but I'd like to invite up a man who can tell these stories. Ron Scanlon was his partner for many, many years, and he joins us now to share some memories with us tonight. Retired police detective Ron Scanlon.
Thanks, Diane. My old buddy Jerry, we go back a long way. No, not that far. He still looks younger than me. Dr. Nagy, friends of Mike, family. This is truly an honor to be here tonight. What a great turnout to honor our friend, my former partner, D. Michael Collins. This is a difficult day for all of us. One thing which I am sure we all appreciate today is being here together, sharing in each other's silence and in each other's moments of thoughts for Mike, who we all loved as a friend, a loved one, a husband, a father, and a grandfather. Trying my best to focus on the happiest times Mike brought us, rather than the fact that Mike is no longer with us today. Mike would have wanted us to all be here today with our happiest thoughts of our time spent together. And believe me, he's still here, very strongly in spirit. Mike was such a strong person, through and through, from character, personality, integrity, and presence. We're all here because somewhere, somehow, we have all been touched by Mike. What I'll remember will always be the love that he had for his family, his beautiful daughters, Tammy, Lori, and Kelly, and his late son, Michael, and the love that Mike and his wife, Sandy, shared with each other, as well as for his 8 grandchildren. Mike was a proud Irish Catholic that attended church regularly. We spoke after Mike had a private meeting with the new bishop, Daniel Thomas. Mike was so thrilled to meet him and was looking forward to having regular meetings with Bishop Thomas. Mike and I became close friends back in the 70s when Mike was assigned to the Vice and Narcotics Unit and later the Metro Drug Unit. We were partners along with now Sheriff John Tharp. Yeah, I know. What a crew. I knew from the moment that we started working investigations that Mike was something special. He brought professionalism to his work ethic. His demeanor, his tenacity, and his ability to work an investigation from start to finish was always thorough and above board. He was truly one of the best. Working major drug cases along with liquor violations, illegal gambling, prostitution cases meant many long hours on the street and many more in the courtroom. Being away from Mike's family bothered him. Those missed events with his daughters and his son, but Mike always found time to show them his love. He spoke of them constantly. Mike and I used to go fishing a lot out in Lake Erie. We alternated on whose boat we'd use. I remember going ice fishing with Mike and his late son, Michael. Mike talked me into using my vehicle, of course, to drive out into the lake, out in the ice. We ended up 1.5 miles out, dug our hole, had fun, caught some fish. But the sound of that crackling ice below us, it just scared the blank out of me. But Mike laughed and he told me, that sound is traveling from miles away. Don't worry about it. Well, the next day, several ice fishermen were stranded on the lake and they had to be rescued by the Coast Guard because the ice had split. Another time we're fishing in the Toledo Police Walleye Tournament. We're using my boat, miles from shore. The weather turned for the worse. The visibility made it almost impossible to see the shoreline. I admit, I was getting seasick. Mike said, don't worry. I know the lake. I'll get us back to shore. Truth is, we ended up in Canadian waters. He thought Pelee Island was Westchester. And thank God a passing boat came by and the operator called the Coast Guard, and they came out, even though it was Canadian waters, and towed us to shore. We loved to play tricks on each other. I remember giving Mike his initiation in the vice unit. We sent him into a downtown liquor establishment to allegedly make an undercover purchase from a fictitious person that would be seated at the bar. What Mike didn't know was that there was a sign on his back that read, it was my birthday, kiss me. Well, he got a lot of attention. Then when he finally exited the bar, he had that Collins smirk on his face, and he looked at me, he said, you got me, paybacks. Well, sometime later, he and I were way out in the county. We're about to do surveillance on an alleged drug house. Mike said, I see something in the cornfield. Stops the car, we get out. I said, where? And Mike's pointing out in the cornfield. While I'm looking out in the cornfield, Mike's behind me with a small starter pistol that makes a lot of noise and just shoots blanks. Yeah, he cranked one off. I hit the ground. I turned around and he was standing there laughing like crazy. And what did he say? Paybacks. This was what it was like working with Mike. Good times, good arrests. In 1984, crack cocaine was making its debut in Toledo. Several of us bid out of the unit. We went to various investigative units. A handful of us, like John Tharp, stayed very close to this day. I had the pleasure of being an officer in the police union when Mike was president. An opportunity came up for me to run for city council. Mike acted as my campaign manager. I had to give a speech at an event, and I asked my friend Mike, will you help me with the speech? And he did. Well, after I gave the speech, a few people, Rob Ludeman being one of them, said, you sounded just like Collins. You know, it had to be all those big words. I lost the race, but my mentor and friend, later ran and he won a District 2 council seat and later became one of the best mayors the city's ever had. What Mike endured in his first year was enormous, to say the least. The tragic loss of two of our brother firefighters, the water crisis, snow emergency, working to retain the Jeep Wrangler in Toledo, ProMedic, and much more. But this is what Mike liked to do, and he did it passionately. Mike was a true independent. I believe that helped him because he owed no allegiance to anyone. He worked for everyone. I hope and pray that the team Mike has assembled is kept intact and that his vision for Toledo and his citizens becomes a reality. This isn't the time for politics. The other day, I was reading some Irish poems. I was thinking of Mike, and some proverbs and some prayers. And one of them really hit me. And I went back and I read it again. I said, this is Mike talking on his last day with us on earth. And it's titled, Remembered Joy. Don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I follow the plan God laid for me. I saw his face. I heard his call. I took his hand and left it all. I could not stay another day to love, to laugh, to work, or play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. And if parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Ah, yes, these things I too shall miss. My life's been full. I've savored much. Good times, good friends, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't shorten yours with undue grief. Be not burdened with tears of sorrow. Enjoy the sunshine of the morrow. This isn't the end, my friend. It's just the beginning. I'll see you on the other side. Thanks, everyone.
You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up.
That is the St. Francis de Sales Choir. Thank you, young men, for being here. Thank you for sharing your gift of music tonight and for joining us in the celebration of the amazing life of D. Michael Collins. Detective Scanlon made reference to this. D. Michael Collins, a son of South Toledo, Libby, St. James before that. To me, and with all respect to the politicians who are in the room, we love you, especially when you come on our shows, but Mike was pretty much the anti-politician when you think about it. He always ran with that I behind his name. And in 2013, when Mike Collins pulled off a win that some didn't see coming, he did so impressively, without a political party and the apparatus of support they can provide. He was proudly independent, but he did so surrounded by a legion of young Toledoans who believed that, oh yeah, you will do better in Toledo. And surrounded by this energy of young people, Mike then added some veterans of governance at City Hall. He would win the election, and after taking oath, Mr. Collins staffed his cabinet, often turning to these experienced experts and sometimes taking some heat for that, but also with the caveat that if you came out of retirement to serve, if you're heading back toward retirement, you will, in turn, train, mentor your own replacement. Mentoring was so big to Mike Collins. Building and equipping the next generation. Since the first news text alert of a week ago Sunday, I've been so glad that our next speaker, a voice of experience, said yes when D. Michael Collins called. Please welcome Chief of Staff, Bob Reinbold.
Again, I thank everybody for being here tonight. It really makes me feel good, and I know it does the family too, to see how much everyone cares for Mike, and we certainly did. My theme is going to be what I do remember about Mike. And in starting that, and remembering Mayor Collins, I think the best place to start is with his love and respect for his family. He was always talking about them, expressing his pride in the latest accomplishment or some story about a fond family memory. I tell you, that man could tell a story. A simple fact became a novel, but we all enjoyed hearing it, and his compassion and his love for his family came through time after time. His family and his extended family on Sandy's side was near and dear to his heart. He always encouraged his staff to keep their family first. This includes leaving a message with one of our staff members the day of his cardiac arrest to hug his new baby. I can still hear him saying, "Go home. It's getting too late to still be in the office. The work will still be there in the morning." He would then call us late at night, usually around 10 p.m., so he could discuss his latest thought. Of course, few of these conversations were ever short, but I must admit I enjoyed them because his desire to leave Toledo a better place was contagious and made all of us better staff members. Mike was a visionary and knew what direction he wanted to take, but his attention to the operation details of how to get that was left to the great staff he put in place. In reality, this was his strength. He would give clear and concise direction and let the staff work out the details. In remembering Mike, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight his love for his wife, Sandy, his great appreciation for her being part of his life. He tells the story of how they first met while she was general counsel at the University of Toledo and he needed help with his law enforcement program. As he relates this to me, he couldn't get in to see Sandy at the time he desired. It turns out he had a tea time when she wanted to meet and he didn't want to miss a chance to play golf. As I understand what happened, Sandy's secretary told her of Mike's dilemma, so she met him at an earlier time. One might ask, why would Sandy change her schedule, especially for someone she had never met and who really wasn't that important at the university? As the story was related to me by the mayor, of course, remember, my source on this was him, so who knows the accuracy of the detail? She is very helpful in resolving the problem. Once that conversation was over, she tactfully brought up golf. It appears she had an interest in playing, but didn't know a lot of people who liked to play. Being a gentleman, Mike offered her the opportunity to play with him sometime. Well, he never thought she would accept, but she did. Now, the way he tells it, on the day of their planned golf outing, he is there, ready to tee off, but meets some friends who ask him to play. He first tells them no, but as the time gets closer to tee off and Sandy is not there, he begins thinking about joining the guys. Just as he's about to join them, he turns around, and there's Sandy, looking intently at him with that "you better not be thinking about changing your mind" look. That look that he tells me he has now found out means he was in real trouble. Yes, Mayor Collins does get himself into trouble on occasion. Well, then they went on to play. I never heard who won, but I suspect Sandy, since he never claimed he did. Love and mutual respect developed from there. Many don't realize how many times he relied on her as a sounding board for his ideas, or how many times the mayor's staff heard, "I will check that out with Sandy and let you know my thoughts tomorrow." That is not to say he didn't want to make a decision, but it does show he valued her opinion immensely. They were truly a great team who complemented each other well. Fast forwarding to 2007, I remember thinking, oh no, Mike Collins is now a councilman, when he was first elected to District 2 council seat. This reaction was based on my experience with him as a dedicated and hardworking union leader, which frequently put him into conflict with me since I was in the administration. One example of this was when the city was going through a difficult financial time and we were trying to reduce expenses. One idea to save money was to reduce the staff that pumped the gas and checked oil at the city service stations. To me, it seemed reasonable to ask all city employees to pump their own gas and check their own oil. After all, don't we all do this in our personal vehicles? Well, Mike didn't see it that way. He argued that a police officer could get oil on their clothes and not look professional when meeting the public for the rest of the shift. He also argued that it was unfair to have officers exposed to the elements when pumping gas. Their uniforms would get wet in the rain, and this was a change in working conditions in violation of the union contract. The reason and the grievances went on, as only Mike can do. Boy, can he talk. At times, he had me so confused, I almost forgot what my issue was. But finally I asked, what would it take to resolve our differences and save the city money? His answer was delivered with that Irish twinkle in his eyes that I've seen many times when he knows he has a clever thought or an answer. Put up a canopy. I said, what do you mean? He said, a canopy over the gasoline pumps to protect the employees from the weather, just like a real station would have. The rest of the story is history. We now have a canopy over the gas pumps, and for the last several years, many employees have been protected from weather conditions by the Collins Cares canopy. While this might not seem important, I think it does show. Thank you. I'm glad somebody appreciated it. While this may not seem important, I think it does show his ability to think of creative ways to solve problems. This is only one of many examples of how Mayor Collins cared not only for the city, but for the employees of the city. I could point out that if it were not for his questioning the health care cost system used by the city several years ago, we may not have our current self-insurance program saving millions of dollars for our citizens. Back to Mike becoming a councilman. I thought, well, he will not be representing a union, so how bad can it be? Clearly, he enjoyed his job and was very dedicated to his council district. As such, I constantly heard from him requesting extra service, special attention, and more money. Of course, this was always a challenge to provide. provide, so we were frequently in conflict. But to his credit, we were able to work out a satisfactory resolution that better served his council district. I always used to dread council meetings when Mike would ask a question. First, it was never just a simple question. It was always some complex statement that required a PhD to understand, thus getting in the nickname, the professor, by many of us. The worst part, though, was that you knew that he already had the answer and probably had more details than I had. Occasionally, he would cross the line a little. I know this is hard to believe, but he did. And instead of setting policy, as council should, he would borderline interfere with the administration, which some would say is violation of Section 30 of the city charter. In fact, on several occasions, I did say this to him in writing. Recently, he reminded me of this and showed me a significant stack of letters from me so stating this many years ago. Well, this didn't seem to stop him. At least he didn't throw them away and still kept them, so they must have meant something. Of course, Sandy recently stated to me that he just won't throw away anything. And when they recently moved to a new house, they almost had to move just to have the room for all the stuff he had collected over the years. Who needs two-leaf blowers, especially when one doesn't work? At the end of 2009, I was looking forward to retirement and thinking how nice it would be not to have Professor Collins grilling me on the floor of council with one of his lengthy, complex, almost incomprehensible questions. Little did I realize that our paths would cross again. In 2013, I got a call from Mike complimenting me on a project I had been working on. Of course, he had some suggestions how I could make the project better. I thought that was nice of him to call, but he thought a little bit more. I did not think much more of it. A short time later, I needed some information and called him for some advice as to where I could get it. The conversation led to others, and pretty soon we were discussing if he should run for mayor. If he did, could he win? Soon we were meeting with Sandy because he indicated he would only think about it if she thought it was feasible and she was supportive. Of course, we also needed her as a campaign treasurer. Since we had no money, the only thing we could do was a strong door-to-door campaign, which required a total commitment and a great amount of time. I admit I doubted if he would abide to a campaign schedule. I was wrong. He did whatever we told him to do, with one exception. We envisioned walking the whole city, which required spending only a short time at each home, asking the person for their vote, and moving on quickly. Well, let me tell you, this doesn't work when you spend 15 minutes or more at a home discussing who knows what, but usually involving some prolonged story. Well, that was Mike, so we had to adjust. As we know, with his efforts and the help of a great young campaign staff and a few old volunteers, he was elected mayor. Then we had the worst winter ever, the death of 2 firefighters, 2 major water main breaks, potholes galore, major financial challenges, and of course the water crisis in August. The list went on and on, as Ron had indicated earlier. Most people would be very frustrated facing all these challenges, but not Mayor Collins. Each challenge seemed to make him stronger and more determined to work harder to accomplish the goals outlined in his campaign commitments and to make Toledo a better place to live. But these accomplishments have been reported. What we have not heard is how he worked hard to not only motivate his young staff and work to keep morale high, especially during challenging times. Frequently, he would ask how a family member was doing and left a voice message for employees, encouraged them in a variety of ways, and insisted on reviewing every employee's termination personally to make sure that the employee had been given every chance possible. This particular one drove me crazy at times. He was a leader who were worried about the homeless, stayed up late at night concerned over poverty and the plight of the youth in our community and how we can better educate them as a pathway out of poverty. How many times did we hear him say that, staff? Many, many. He was an elected official who wanted to explore new ideas and not manage a city on the decline, but instead set a path of progress to the future. He was an educator who liked nothing more than meeting with children in his office and at schools to discuss city government and the importance of being informed and getting involved. Actually, on occasion, I would feel sorry for these children when the mayor would get into one of his storytelling moods. But in reality, the kids seemed to love it and loved him. You could not have a more caring or compassionate person. On a lighter note, I always knew he had a great sense of humor and loved to tell a story. I didn't know he had a talent to become another person and change his voice so it was difficult to recognize him. He would utilize this talent to prank the staff. Yes, the mayor was a prankster. I remember when in last July, using a disguised voice, he pretended he was a very upset citizen. He complained that even though it was July, he still had snow in his driveway and wanted the city to remove it. Of course, our staff knew that wasn't a real situation, but they handle all calls with respect and try not to just cut the call off. Well, Mike is a master at dragging out a conversation on, and did so for some time before he identified himself, laughing very hard. On another occasion, he called using a different voice this time, complaining that we had closed the city pools too early and he had no place to swim in the winter. The staff explained some options only to have the mayor say they won't work because he needs a place to swim nude. He then burst out laughing, knowing the staff member's jaw had probably dropped significantly. These stories go on and on. There's probably a police officer here tonight hoping I don't tell the story about how on a recent trip out of town, Mike called him using a high-pitched female voice to discuss a date they had many years ago. We'll let that story stop here, but I can tell you, it was hilarious, you know. While some may say the mayor, this wasn't very mayoral, I would say they're wrong. This is an example of how Mayor Collins cares, not only for the citizens of Toledo, but also very deeply for his employees. He wanted to help make their jobs a little easier by relieving some of the stress through humor. I can tell you, it worked. My goal tonight is hopefully show you that Mike cared greatly about his family, his wife, Toledo's future, our neighborhoods, our citizens, city employees, and last but not least, his dog Chloe. Yes, I worked his beloved dog into my comments. The care was reflected in every decision he made. When we discussed his campaign slogan, it didn't take long to select Collins Cares as the right one. It was the right one then, and it's reflected in every decision he made as mayor of Toledo. Tonight, we give honor to D. Michael Collins, who will be missed by all. I love you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those stories, Bob. That was great to hear. We heard so much about the challenging 14 months that the mayor was in office, and here is now a gentleman who's been alongside him during the Jeep Wrangler situation and who knows him very well. I'd like to introduce our Director of Development, Matt Sapera.
Thank you, Diane. Good evening. My name is Matt Sapera, and I had the distinct honor and privilege to serve as Mayor Collins, Director of Economic Development for the past 13 months. I would like to thank the Mayor's family for the opportunity to speak to you tonight and to provide a little insight into his vision for the future of our community. I'd also like to thank those that have provided words of support and encouragement from around the country during this trying time. It has been a humbling experience receiving all of these kinds of sentiments, and it's a true testament to Mayor Collins' character. While public speaking generally does not intimidate me, the thought of speaking before thousands of citizens about a man that I so deeply admire has proven to be quite intimidating. However, I have been trained for this moment by virtue of sitting through many council meetings to explain and defend projects. Surviving those exchanges makes tonight so much easier, especially since I won't be taking any of their questions during this speech. Before I speak about the mayor's development vision, I want to spend a minute talking about his management philosophy. The mayor truly believed in empowering his directors to run their respective divisions. This is not to say that he wasn't involved. He was very involved. But he had enough respect in our collective ability to let us manage our teams and ensure that if the unthinkable happened, an unplanned change in leadership, for example, there would be a seamless transition that did not impact the services that the citizens of Toledo expected and deserved. This is exactly what has happened. The day after the mayor's incident, his directors came to work knowing full well what was expected of them, and they delivered. I know the mayor would be very proud of that fact. I also want to mention that this is not simply my opinion, but I've heard this from so many other people in the community. The mayor knew what he was doing when he brought this team together, and I applaud Mayor Hicks Hudson for committing to keeping the team together. The mayor's economic development vision is very simple and straightforward, and that's what makes it so effective. The Department of Development in 2014, its efforts have supported this statement. During this time period, more than 1,100 jobs have been created or retained. He envisioned a plan that would impact all residents because he truly believed that the way to break the cycle of poverty in the community was to ensure that all opportunities were made available to all of our citizens. For the vast majority of the 20th century, Toledo led the state in the amount of money that its citizens earned on a per capita basis. Today, we are nowhere near the top. This was simply unacceptable to the mayor. He believed that education and training are the keys to breaking this cycle. He also believed that we needed to diversify our economic base. The auto industry has been very good to the region for the past century, but we needed to seek other industries that soften the impacts that the community often suffers when the auto industry experiences its cyclical downturns. He also believed that it was not the place for the government to take credit for the investments that the private side made that led to job creation. He often quoted President Truman by saying, "It's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care about who gets the credit." That's why you never saw him in front of a camera, even when large projects were announced, and the ProMedica project is a great example of that. The only exception to this was when there was a significant issue, and I ask you to think back to the water crisis last August. It would have been so much easier for the mayor to put one of his directors up there and respond to the hard media questions, but he had made the decision that he would be the one to answer those questions. This exemplifies leadership. Finally, the mayor's strategy was guided by a simple philosophical question. Was the project that we were discussing good public policy? It sounds so simple, but in practice it's much more challenging. It would seem that any project would be good public policy. However, when you take into account the expenditure of taxpayer funds, he always focused on what the return of that investment would be to the taxpayer. The mayor was keenly aware of the self-image issue that the Toledoans faced as a result of the great effects of the Great Recession. He recognized that a major project out of the gate would put us back onto the path of regaining some of our self-confidence. Fortunately for us, ProMedica and Mr. Ostra provided that opportunity. Mayor Collins believed in this project, not just because it was popular. He thought it was a good project because it satisfied all the tests that he had laid out for us in the analysis that I discussed previously. As all of you know, this project has been the source of many public hearings. The mayor believes strongly in the ability of the public to speak their minds on these types of sensitive issues, and he respected council for allowing all sides to be heard. This respect is based on the adherence to our system of government, something that the mayor dedicated his life to. At the end of the day, this project is going to move forward, and there are going to be thousands of additional people working in our downtown. The mayor's not going to be happy by me saying this, but he had everything to do with that. Certainly, ProMedica should get the lion's share of the credit for demonstrating its leadership to the community, but it was the mayor that shaped the deal that ultimately council and ProMedica both blessed. History will show that one of our greatest legacies of this project is that it convinced other business leaders to reverse the trend of disinvestment in our downtown. Since the project was announced, many other companies have announced that they too are either relocating to or expanding to this area of the city. The mayor firmly believed that the key to a successful region was a strong, vibrant downtown. This will be one of his legacies. Last fall, we were faced with the possibility of the iconic Wrangler being moved out of Toledo. While we anticipated the potential expansion of the Toledo North Assembly Plant, we never envisioned that moving the production of the Wrangler out of Toledo was an option. The mayor immediately called for a meeting with his team, the state, and Fiat Chrysler. That meeting began with Mr. Marchione talking about the need to keep the discussion confidential. The mayor gave him his word that everything that was discussed would stay in that room. Since then, the mayor and his team have taken some criticism for not being more open about that discussion. But the mayor's a man of his word and would not betray his commitment. I believe that was that commitment that led to a bond that he shares with Mr. Marchione that few other elected leaders can claim. Over the course of the past several months, with the help of many people and honoring his commitment to Mr. Marchione, a strategy has been developed to entice Fiat Chrysler to maintain its presence in the community while at the same time respecting the mayor's belief that any deal must demonstrate good public policy. I recall several weeks ago when I sat down with the mayor to go over this plan, he had many questions, as you'd expect. Part of the partnership that would be developed with Fiat Chrysler would be for them to maintain the current employment level at that facility. Currently, more than 1,800 people are involved in the production of the Wrangler, and the plan clearly highlights this fact. The mayor was adamant that when the plan was discussed, that I not refer to 1,800 people, but rather 1,800 families. I highlight this point because it shows the mayor's understanding of how important that facility is to the fabric of our community. He understood that the Wrangler product produced the stability that our community needs. The family unit is something that he believed strongly in and consistently reminded me that the vast majority of social problems could be eliminated if citizens had access to stable employment. The 75-year production history of the Wrangler in Toledo highlights that stability. I have highlighted the two largest projects that the mayor's development team is currently working on, but there are literally dozens more. That's what truly excites me and our development team. These projects stretch across many different market segments and involve all areas of the community. When they are completed, few will recognize Toledo as we know it today. That will be another one of Mayor Collins' legacies. I have spent time talking about the mayor's vision for the community, but I also feel obligated to spend a few minutes talking about the man. Mayor Collins was not simply an elected official. He saw himself as truly a public servant. He had the rare ability to have discussions with some of our largest CEOs while at the same time being able to communicate and relate to everyday citizens. He always had their best interests at heart. I was blessed with a strong work ethic by my parents, but I was always amazed at the hours the mayor worked. He often worked late into the night, whether it was at his desk, whether it was at meetings with the public. When I would voice my concerns about this, noticing how tired he would become, he always says that he didn't work any harder than the average Toledoan. No one outworked Mayor Collins. As many have talked about before, the mayor had a great sense of humor and an infectious laugh. Quite frankly, he was a prankster. He was a master at being the brains behind a prank, with few ever knowing it. And yes, I was a target of some of those pranks. I always struggled with the concept of retaliation out of respect for the mayor and not crossing that line as an employee. But after the last prank, I decided that enough was enough. And Sandy, I'm going to apologize to you up front. So knowing how much the mayor enjoyed speaking with salesmen, I ordered an in-home demonstration from a vacuum cleaner salesman for the mayor for this coming Saturday. Sandy, I wouldn't answer the door between 2 and 4. It's so good to hear everyone laugh. I know that that's what the mayor would want us to do tonight, celebrate his life and not grieve over his passing. Mayor is a great man. We all recognize that. We will get through these trying times. In closing, I want to quote a verse from the Marine Corps hymn. If the Army and Navy ever look on heaven's scenes, they will find the streets are guarded by United States Marines. Mayor Collins has arrived at his final duty station, and he is standing watch over all of us. It is now up to each and every one of us to implement his vision and make the city of Toledo reach its true potential. History will show that Mayor Collins was the catalyst for the city of Toledo's renaissance. Goodbye, Mayor. Goodbye, mentor. Goodbye, friend, for now. Thank you.
Matt Sapera, thank you so very much. The mayor talked with me several times about that young man. He so liked Matt Sapera. Thanks for your service, young man. Keep it up. In the city of Toledo, we elect council people 2 ways, by district, geographic districts. Mike's was number 2, as we've heard about before. We also elect council members at large. The people of the 4th Council District have, in overwhelming terms, said, we want Paula Hicks Hudson to represent us on City Council. And once upon arriving at that body, her colleagues, seeing her substance and her intellect, her passion and compassion, elected her to serve as president of Toledo City Council. It is a high honor. It's a position of leadership. And per the charter, should the mayor be unable to serve, the torch is passed to the president of Toledo City Council, who becomes our mayor. Even tonight, as we grieve the loss of our friend and our mayor in Toledo, we can all stand very proud and very fortunate that we have a person of substance ready, willing, and able to take up that mantle of public service and leadership, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor of the city of Toledo, Paula Hicks Hudson.
Thank you, Jerry, for those kind words, and thank you so very much. Tonight, we come to this place, Savage Hall, at the University of Toledo, where Mayor D. Michael Collins was an instructor and a mentor to students, where he was an avid fan and cheerleader for this university. Go Rockets! We come to this place where just less than 2 weeks ago, he exhorted young students to be the wings that helped him to make decisions for this great city. We come to this place and time having heard from his and our chief of staff and his economic director about the vision and the love that Mayor Collins had for the city of Toledo. We come to this place collectively to pay our respects to a man who willingly and eagerly went anywhere and everywhere to talk with anyone about anything, always striving for the betterment of this great city. I stand in this place in this unique position of having been a colleague to D. Michael, while he was a member of Toledo City Council, interacting with him when he became mayor and I was council president, and now standing here as his successor with the legacy of hard work, meeting adversity while seeking growth and development for all of us. As a councilman, you heard he was an advocate for the residents of District 2. He zealously fought for the scarce resources to address the needs of his district. He also jealously protected his district. We often discuss the relationship between the administration and the legislative branch of government and why there was difficulty in bridging the gap. Interestingly enough, that discussion continued when he became our mayor. Regardless of his position, he was prepared. Having done his homework, he had his pulse on his district, and when he became mayor, he had his pulse on the city. Our differing of opinions on opening the pools was a difference based upon the allocation of resources and not about the need for recreation. His saying, wants versus needs, still rings true to us today. We just saw them differently. However, to his credit, he did not prevent the administration staff from working with us when we came up with a community solution. The willingness to work together for the betterment of the city and its citizens was always the common ground, the place of compassion for us. It is my hope that we can continue to show those acts of compassion as we move forward from this place. Let us not forget Evelyn Johnson and Andre Crisp, who turned around and stopped to assist a stranger. Let us not forget the mayor's last words that Sunday afternoon, asking each and every one of us to look out and help out our neighbors in times of need. Lastly, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge how important family and heritage was to Mayor Collins. Sometimes at the end of the day, we would speak about the love of his life, his wife Sandy, and his grandchildren. I'm sorry, daughters, when you have grandchildren, you just move out the way. You know what happens about that. But he spoke lovingly about the times that he spent with you all, traveling and having a great time being with family. He spoke about his love to cook. He spoke about his dog. I didn't really know about golf, or else we would have talked about that a lot more. How you came to move into your new home in the midst of a mayoral campaign. How lucky he was to have married you. We all know how proud he was of his Irish roots and that he also grew up on Fernwood, which is in my district. Truly, he is and was a son of Toledo. On behalf of the city of Toledo, we have a proclamation to memorialize the work, the man that led our city for just a short time. I would like to present to you, Sandy, from the city's flag in honor of your husband. The city crest contains the Latin term laboria est orare. To work is to pray. How fitting it is to commemorate his hard work, his dedication, his loyalty as mayor to us, the citizens of Toledo. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy, for sharing your husband with us. Thank you, children and grandchildren, for sharing your father and grandfather with us. Thank you, citizens, and let us not forget that to be this city of compassion, we have to remember his legacy, and it is more than what we see here today. Thank you so much.
Such a large part of Mike Collins' life was as a Toledo police officer, and it seems there's incredible symmetry in the fact that his last major appointment was to make George Krall Toledo's police chief. And Chief Krall joins us now to reading the record.
From the record, D. Michael Collins was born on June 30th, 1944. In 1962, he graduated from Libby High School. Shortly thereafter, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. After serving 2 years on active duty and 6 in the reserves, Corporal Collins received an honorable discharge. On March 30th, 1973, D. Michael Collins was appointed as a patrolman with the Toledo Police Department. He received badge number 680. On December 17th, 1974, Officer Collins received the Meritorious Service Medal. Officer Collins was awarded a bachelor's degree in 1975 from the University of Toledo. On March 1st, 1977, Officer Collins was reassigned to the Vice Narcotics Section. On March 1st, 1984, Detective Collins was reassigned to the Investigative Services Division. In February of 1988, Detective Collins was elected as the president of the Toledo Police Patrolmen's Association. On May 15th, 1996, Detective Collins received the Professional Service Award. In 1998, Detective Collins was awarded a master's degree in Business Administration from the University of Toledo. During the course of his 26-plus-year career, in addition to his 2 medals, Detective Collins received 23 letters of recognition, appreciation, and commendation. Detective D. Michael Collins retired from the Toledo Police Department in good standing on August 16, 1999. In 2007, he was elected to represent Toledo City Council District 2 and was re-elected for a second term in 2011. During his tenure in City Council, Councilman Collins was the chairman of the Public Safety, Law, and Criminal Justice Committee. Councilman Collins was elected mayor of the city of Toledo, Ohio in November of 2013, taking office on January 2nd, 2014. Mayor D. Michael Collins passed away on Friday, February 6th, 2015.
We have heard the lovely words about the life of Mike Collins, and Toledo Fire Lieutenant Matt Hertzfeld wanted to give you some pictures to go along with those words.
Let's face it, we have 70 years that are going to be collapsed down to about 4.5 minutes. But boy, when you put it together, you talk about a life well lived and richly run. From the south end of Toledo through St. James and Libby, the U.S. Marines, the Toledo Police Department, a member of City Council, the mayor of this great city, while being a husband, a dad, a granddad. This is a life well lived. Please watch.
Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the roses falling. 'Tis you must go and I must bide. But come we back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. 'Tis I'll be in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. But when ye come and all the flowers are dying, if I am dead, as dead I well may be, you'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me, and I shall hear though soft your tread above me, and all my grave will warmer, sweeter be, for you will bend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep